Hello, for this presentation, we are going to focus on immigration in early and middle adulthood stage. And there's going to be a lot of information, a lot of statistics, and then I will be describing the implications for young and middle adulthood. So again, I will be providing an overview of immigration statistics and then talking about the implications of young and middle adulthood. So many of these statistics come from trends in the Center for Immigration and Policy Studies from 2019. So as you can see here, 13.7% of the US population is immigrant. There has been an increase. 25% of the population come from Mexico, or 1 in 4 immigrants come from Mexico, and the others come from other countries. For example, 6% from China, 6% from the Philippines, 4% from Honduras, and 3% from El Salvador. And most immigrants are here lawfully, because I think many times we hear that all immigrants are undocumented. But many, again, have a permanent resident status. And that number is 77%. And the rest, 23%, are here in the country undocumented. Many immigrants come with a lower levels of educational backgrounds. About 27% come with less than a high school education, and about 30% come with a college degree. But that's actually about the same as the general US population. But when we look specifically at Mexican immigrants, we see that 54% don't have a high school education and only 7% have a bachelor's degree. So when we look at immigrants overall in the US, 53% are proficient in English, but only 34% of Mexicans are, or Mexican immigrants are English proficient. So when we consider public perception of immigrants, 2/3 of Americans feel that immigrants strengthen the country through their talent and work, while only 1/4 believe that they are a burden by taking our jobs and housing. And among immigrants, there has been an increase in older adults coming to the US. There has been a jump because a few years ago, the average age of immigrants coming in was, for newcomers, was 21, and now it is 36. And specifically from Mexico was 22, and now it is 29. So what we're seeing is an aging population. It is a broad phenomenon. It is both for populations already in the US and also for the newcomers coming in. But as we look at the bars above in this slide, we see that Mexican immigrants are less likely to be in the aging category compared to other groups, and they're more likely to be in the working age group. So what are the implications for these statistics? So as we think about specifically about Mexican immigrants, who are the majority population in New Mexico, and as we think about their education, employment, poverty, housing, healthcare, and benefits, there are implications, particularly for this age of development. We know from the previous slide that Mexican immigrants are less likely to have a high school degree and unlikely to have a bachelor's degree, and their levels of English proficiency are lower. And while their children have access to public education, they themselves are limited to higher education due to their English proficiency and also lack of documentation. Tuition varies according to different states and according to different immigration status. So for example, thinking about DACA, we think DACA is a pretty progressive policy, but it does have some limitations that are placed on DACA recipients that are significant, which affects their ability to be employed, get a job, or have a living wage, including, again, in combination maybe with the English proficiency, high school diploma, and college. DACA stands for Deferred Childhood Arrivals. Recipients of DACAs of 2021 were roughly ages 24 to 38. And DACA recipients have protection against deportation. They can travel within the US and they are able to work legally. And they can receive a social security number, but they're not eligible for a lot of benefits and financial aid. There are restrictions on DACA's recipients' ability to receive professional licenses in some states, and that includes social work licenses, and that impacts their ability to be employed in certain sectors. And the jobs immigrants tend to take are in food production, agriculture, and construction, and this is both for legal and undocumented immigrants. Immigrants in general are more likely to work in jobs with higher mortality rates, and they are more likely to risk their lives at work. They are also more likely to live in poverty, specifically Mexican immigrants. So due to the poverty and low socioeconomic resources, they are also more likely to put resources together and live in overcrowding housing conditions. And they are a risk of exploitation by landlords, and undocumented immigrants are more likely to experience barriers related to home ownership due to their immigration status, and they may be more reluctant to engage with banks because a lot of banks require social security numbers and they might be less likely to qualify for mortgage loans. So we have also heard that, society or some people sometimes think that immigrants are a burden on our healthcare systems, but they actually have lower healthcare cost. Immigrants are less likely to seek healthcare because of the cost, and because they are undocumented, they might not want to be identified. So immigrants who are insured tend to be younger, healthier than the general population, and they are contributing more to the insurance pool. So immigrants' access to benefits are limited, including access to healthcare. They're not eligible for healthcare, including Medicare, because some states only also, for example, make Medicaid people who are permanent residents or US citizens. Some states do allow children, no matter what, or even if they're not legal permanent residents. And even legal permanent residents have to wait 5 years before they are eligible for healthcare in New Mexico. Refugees, asylum seekers, and immigrants fleeing from domestic violence, for example, might be eligible for healthcare in New Mexico. So as we think about specific implications for early and middle adulthood, one key marker of the transition to adulthood is achieving success in the labor market. And failure to meet this marker affects other markers, including living independently and also marriage. So I would like for you to consider what immigration does for early and middle adulthood, because we have to get our basic needs met, including food, water, and warmth, rest, which can be impacted by poverty. And next, we need to feel safe. We need to have employment or have safe housing. Also, psychologically, we need to have that sense of accomplishment. And this is affected especially for those who don't have documentation. They fear for their safety. They are restricted from contributing to society. And also parent and child relationships are also strained, and it has been hard. They are doing well economically, but it has relationships on, for example, they're affected when they have to be separated from their children. Also, if they're undocumented, that may also cause stress and also strains of the parent and child relationship. So as social workers, we need to advocate. And not just for the children, but also we need to consider the impacts for early and middle adulthood. And we also need to advocate for them as well. Thank you so much.